I woke up before dawn on my younger sister Haley's wedding day. I had driven more than 3 hours the night before from a quiet suburb near Knoxville to Chattanooga, just so I could arrive early and help with everything the way my family wanted. To me, this wedding wasn't just a ceremony, it was a milestone in my sister's life, and I wanted to show up as a real older sister, kind, prepared, and someone who wouldn't let anyone down. I wore a navy blue knee-length dress, simple but elegant, exactly the level of formality Haley liked. The dress cost me $200, money I honestly couldn't spare, but I bought it anyway because I wanted to look my best on her big day. I wanted Haley to see that I had done everything I could to be there and support her. In my handbag was an envelope containing $15,000 in cash. That money didn't come easily. It was the result of countless extra shifts at the hospital, of collapsing from exhaustion in the emergency room, of mornings when I forced myself out of bed even though my body was begging me to stop. I had saved nearly everything for an entire year to make it Haley's wedding gift. I also brought a small velvet box. Inside it, a silver necklace and a pair of earrings I had carefully chosen myself, delicate, understated pieces that perfectly matched her style. I had imagined giving them to her in a quiet moment when she came to hug me or when the music slowed and everything softened. I arrived around 8 in the morning and found the venue breathtaking, a historic reception hall with tall windows, white flowers everywhere, staff rushing around setting up tables and chairs. I immediately went to find Haley's mother-in-law and offered to help with the decorations. She smiled and thanked me. In that moment, everything felt completely normal. I began arranging flowers, tying ribbons, chatting with relatives I hadn't seen in years. People complimented my dress and told me I must be so proud of my younger sister, and I was. I truly was. The ceremony began in such a beautiful atmosphere that I thought finally everything was unfolding the way it should. I stood near the back of the hall, holding a small bouquet Haley had asked me to keep. When my sister appeared at the end of the aisle, wearing a white lace gown, her face glowing under the lights, my eyes stung with tears. Haley looked like a dream bride, beautiful, confident, and happy. Nathan stood at the front, smiling so widely that I found myself thinking, she's lucky. At least today, she's being loved the way she deserves. The vows were sweet, the kiss was perfect, and the entire room erupted in applause. I clapped too, harder than anyone. In that moment, I truly believed everything would be okay. I believed that despite the favoritism in our family, despite the loss and loneliness I'd carried for so long, today I could still stand there simply as a sister. After the ceremony, everyone moved to the reception area. I stood near the dessert table, a glass of champagne in my hand, watching Haley dance with Nathan. She was smiling, the kind of smile only truly happy people have, carefree, light, the same smile she used to have when we were kids. I told myself I'd wait for a quiet moment to give her the wedding gifts, maybe when she came over to hug me or when the music slowed. I wanted to tell her how proud I was of her, how much I loved her, and that Daniel would have been happy to see her like this. And then I saw Haley walking toward me. She wasn't smiling. Her face was flushed, her eyes sharp and cold. Haley stopped a few steps away from me and said loudly enough for the people nearby to hear, "Leave now. Nathan doesn't want you here." I froze. The champagne glass in my hand suddenly felt slippery. For a second, I thought I must have misheard. All I could manage was a tiny, stunned whisper. "What?" Haley clenched her jaw. "You heard me. You need to go. You're ruining everything." I looked past her shoulder. My parents were standing there. My mother had her arms crossed, lips pressed tight. My father looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Then my mother spoke, and her words hit me like a slap across the face. "A single mother like you shouldn't bring bad luck to your sister's wedding. Leave." It was as if the entire world went silent. The music kept playing, people kept laughing and dancing, but all I could hear was the blood pounding in my ears and the burning heat of humiliation on my face. I looked at Haley, the sister I had once taken to dance lessons, the one I had stayed up all night with when her heart was broken, and now she was driving me away like I was some kind of curse. I didn't argue, I didn't cry, I simply nodded once, set the champagne glass down on the nearest table, picked up my handbag, and walked out of the reception hall. My heels clicked against the stone floor, each step echoing inside my head. I passed tables full of laughter, walked past a photographer staring in confusion, past the little flower girl who watched me wide-eyed. No one said a word. I pushed the door open into the afternoon sunlight and walked straight to my car. It wasn't until I was sitting inside, starting the engine and letting the blast of cold air hit the AC on my face, that I realized something. I was still holding the envelope with $15,000 and the silver jewelry, the gifts I never even got the chance to give. I drove away from the wedding venue, feeling like a shadow. Dusk settled in, and the familiar roads suddenly felt endless. Streetlights streaked, but in my mind there was only one thought, repeating over and over. My own family just kicked me out of a wedding. I couldn't believe it. I had spent the entire day helping with decorations, forcing smiles for everyone, telling myself over and over that today was Haley's day, not mine. I had even prepared the wedding gifts in full, an envelope with $15,000 and a silver jewelry set I had carefully chosen. I had imagined Haley opening them, hugging me, saying, "Thank you, sis." Instead, all I received was a cold stare and a cruel sentence, "You bring bad luck." I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my fingernails dug into my palms until it hurt. It took a long moment before I realized I was shaking, and then I broke down and cried. It wasn't quiet, gentle crying. It was the kind of sobbing that comes from someone who has tried to be strong for far too long and finally can't hold it together anymore. I had to pull over to the side of the road because my vision blurred. I bowed my head, letting the tears fall like rain. And in that moment, I thought of Daniel, my husband, the man who used to hold my hand on my worst days and say, "If you're tired, lean on me." But he was taken from us in a car accident, leaving me alone with our young daughter. I survived by bracing myself every single day, by standing on my own no matter how hard it was. And now even my own family saw me as someone to be avoided. I sat in the car for a long time until the tears finally ran dry. When I calmed, I looked at the back seat where my daughter usually sat, where her car seat and a few small toys were, and suddenly I understood something clearly. I could not let my child grow up in a family like this. I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and drove the rest of the way home. Silence filled the car, but inside me, something had changed. It was no longer just pain, it was a decision. If you were me, would you forgive or cut ties? Comment 1 and I'll share the next part. When I got home, I couldn't sleep. The house was eerily quiet, filled only with the soft hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the wall clock. I walked through the living room, taking in everything familiar: the worn sofa, the wooden table where my grandfather used to sit and read the newspaper, the family photos lining the walls. And then I stopped in front of my grandparents' framed picture. I suddenly remembered the day they passed away. My grandparents were the ones who raised me with a kindness I rarely received from my own parents. When I was little, my parents always treated Haley as the princess of the family. She got everything first: new clothes, nicer toys, extra classes, constant praise. I, on the other hand, was the one who was expected to be understanding, to give way, to stay quiet. My grandparents saw all of it. They didn't say much, but they were always quietly making it up to me. When I went to college, it was my grandparents who helped pay my tuition. When I had my child and had to pull myself back up after everything fell apart, they were still the only ones who called to ask if I was okay, if I needed help. And before they passed away, they did something I would never forget for the rest of my life. They left this house to me alone. The will was clear-cut. I still remember the day the lawyer read it out loud. The whole family was sitting in a small room, the air tight with tension. My mother's eyes widened in disbelief. My father stayed silent, his face stiff. Haley looked at me as if something that should have been hers had been stolen. But my grandparents had thought ahead. They knew my family wouldn't accept it easily, so they required my parents to sign a document acknowledging that they agreed with the will and would not contest it. And they did sign, not because they cared about me, but because my grandparents were still alive then, still respected, and my parents didn't dare make a scene. After that, the house was officially transferred into my name. I used to think that's enough, at least I have a place to stand. But deep down, I knew my family had never truly accepted it. And after what happened at the wedding, I understood that this house wasn't just a place to live, it was the one thing they wanted to take from me. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes from crying too much. I planned to spend the day resting, taking my daughter out, trying to forget the night before like a bad dream. But I had barely finished making my coffee when my phone started vibrating. Haley. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then answered, not because I wanted to talk, but because